Hey, happy readers. Thanks for joining me back for day 2 of Wildfire by Rodman Philbrick. Chapter 7, Make a Giant Help. Where am I? That's my first thought as I wake up. I take a deep breath of hot, stuffy air and I look around. Oh, yeah, the little cabin in the abandoned lumber camp. I sniff the air, but the smell of a distant fire hasn't changed. My second thought is about my mother. I'm worried. Did I mention she's in rehab? Maybe you think all drug addicts are losers. Not my mother. A loser would give up when her husband dies in some stupid road accident on the other side of the world. A few days after the funeral, she called me into the kitchen and sat me down. I'm not sure what's next for us, Sammy, but it will be something good. That's a promise. Your dad is gone, and we'll miss him every day. But that doesn't mean we give up. No way. Not ever. Not as long as we have each other. Mom was sad about Dad, desperate sad, but she kept her job as a physical therapist, taking extra shifts to make ends meet. In her free time, which wasn't much, she made sure I was okay and worked in her garden, which she always said was better than medicine. Weeding, planting, and helping things bloom, helping people heal. That's my mother. Or it was until she got rear ended in a parking lot last year and injured her neck real bad and started taking prescription meds for the pain. After a while, she was taking more and more pills, and pretty soon it seemed like she wasn't really there, like she couldn't concentrate or pay attention. She started missing shifts and let the garden go to weeds. Mom kept apologizing and blamed it on being tired, but it kept getting worse until one day I came home from school and I found her passed out on the floor, barely breathing. I tried to wake her, and when that didn't work, I dialed 911 and they took her to the hospital and pumped her stomach and tested her blood for opioids. Opioids. I hate that word. Sounds like some horrible kind of mind spider that takes over your brain. Anyhow, at the hospital, they assigned me a social worker, Mrs. Labrie, who talked to me about going into foster care while my mother went to rehab. When I freaked out, she came up with a plan for me to go to summer camp instead, which was the perfect solution until the fire wrecked everything. I swing my legs over the steel framed bunk, sitting there, all sweaty, with the stifling heat as I try to clear my head. Think smart, like my dad used to say. Stop worrying about things I can't change. Nothing I can do about Mom. Not today. Today, I need to keep clear of the fire and find my way back home. Concentrate on making that happen. I have no idea what time it is, but it must be early, not long after sunrise. I'm dizzy, or maybe lightheaded is more like it. The constant heat is partly to blame, but mostly it's because my belly is growling, feed me, feed me. I head for the stack of crates, figuring to fill up on bottled water, but what I find in the second crate is way better than that. The crate is loaded with canned goods, B&M beans, Denty Moore beef stew, canned franks and beans, canned brown bread, spam, pears, tuna fish, tons of stuff, enough to live for weeks or maybe months. And there's even a can opener and a jackknife. Cold beef stew for breakfast right out of a can? If you haven't eaten for 24 hours, it tastes great, let me tell you. And better yet, the food goes right to my brain and out pops an idea. Okay, maybe it's not an original idea, but it just might work. Remember that movie where a guy gets stranded on an island and spells out help in the sand? Well, what if I do the same thing in the clearing except spell it out with trees? Not big trees, of course, but white birch saplings small enough for me to drag into place. I mean, they'll be searching for me, right? Sending out helicopters and planes and search parties, whatever they do when a kid goes missing in the woods. Well, unless they think I burned up in the fire, which is discouraging for about 10 seconds, and then I decide to make a giant help and hope for the best, that somebody will see it and rescue me before the fire gets here, before the old camp explodes in flames, and me with it. So, my plan is to find an axe or a handsaw and get started. Doesn't take long to search the little cabin and discover there's nothing bigger than a jackknife I found. I decide to put it in my pocket and hope the owner won't mind, and then I remember those falling down sheds. It makes sense there might be old hand tools in a lumber camp, and if there are, they'd likely be stored in a shed. Feeling like the smartest 12-year-old in the universe, I stride out of the hot cabin and into the overgrown clearing. I check out the skyline looking for signs of fire. The horizon is dark with smoke, but it still looks a long way off. Shoving my way through low bushes and ferns, I head for the closest shed, the one where the roof is more or less intact. The big shed doors are heavy but swing smoothly on recently oiled hinges. A blast of super hot air hits me from inside, and a faint odor of something familiar, gasoline and motor oil. In my mind, that means a chainsaw, which would make my job a whole lot easier if I can figure out how to start a chainsaw. Can't be that hard, right? As the doors swing all the way open, daylight spreads into the dim interior of the shed, and what I see there just about blows my mind. Chapter 8: The Promise He Made Me. The thing is covered by a dust sheet, but I can sort of make out the shape. A vehicle. Could be an off road four wheeler, but I don't think so. Too wide. Only one way to find out. I take a corner of the dust sheet and pull it away. Whoa, I say, amazed. No way. The thing under the sheet is a Jeep, an old Jeep, like from the wars in the last century, dull green in color and as stocky as a bulldog, with thick tires and old leather seats and no doors, and a flat tilt down windshield. There's a shovel and an axe attached to the passenger side and a couple of 5-gallon fuel cans strapped to the back bumper. No ignition, no ignition or key that I can see, just a simple lever marked off on and small compass mounted to the dash. You may be wondering what's the big deal about finding an old Jeep instead of, say, a nice new four-wheeler? Because of my dad, that's why. His favorite vehicle of all time was an Army Jeep. His grandfather drove one in World War II. In one story, the old man had gotten stuck behind enemy lines in the Battle of the Bulge, but he escaped because of his Jeep, rescuing 4 wounded soldiers along the way. I watched a lot of World War II movies with Dad, who wanted to pass along our family history. Plus, it was fun watching movies with him because he knew so much about it all. Once I asked him if he'd get me a Jeep when I turned 16. That made him laugh. You're only 8 years old, he said. Well, that makes me halfway there. He laughed even harder. Promise? Swear on your heart, promise? Tell you what, scamp, he said. I promise that someday we'll buy an old Jeep and fix it up, you and me. When? When we can afford it. And that's the end of this conversation. But it wasn't the end, not by a long shot. Whenever I saw an old Army style Jeep on the road or in a yard, we'd talk about how someday we'd get one of our own. I wish you could see this, Dad. You'd already have the hood up. What I find in the old Jeep's little glove compartment makes it even better. There's a neatly folded map that looks well used. A small gray plastic folder contains a vehicle registration in the name of Aldridge Brown and a faded black and white photo of a tall, lean man in an army uniform standing next to a Jeep. Maybe he owns the lumber camp property or has permission to store a vehicle here. Maybe he's the one who keeps the cabin stocked with provisions. Whatever. He has a big grin on his face. I turn the photo over, and there, in neat handwriting, are the words U.S. Army 40th Infantry, Korea, 1952. Cool. I'm so focused on the Jeep and on the memories of my dad that at first I don't notice the smell, the terrible smell, the awful, terrifying smell. Then it hits me, and I run out of the shed and I look to the sky, which is suddenly boiling dark clouds and flashing orange along the tree line. The fire is suddenly close and getting closer. The wind has shifted and it carries the heat and stink of fire. My heart sinks. The wildfire is back with a vengeance, driving the hot, sparky wind, and there's no time to make a plan. I thought the worst was over, but obviously not. All I can do is get moving as quickly as possible and try keeping ahead of the flames behind the boiling smoke. Smoke that's already burning my throat. Water. I'm going to need water. Best I can do is grab a few jugs for the road. Go. Make it fast. Don't mess up like you did going back for that stupid phone. So I'm sprinting for the little cabin when animals suddenly explode from the surrounding forest. Birds are first, hundreds of them streaking across the clearing. Big black crows, tiny bright songbirds, and eerie-looking owls, silent but for the swoop of their wings. I raise my arms to cover my head, afraid they'll peck my eyes out. But the birds avoid me and they rush into the smoke-darkening sky. Next come squirrels, tails flattened as they skitter through the underbrush, chittering with fear. Then groundhogs waddling along and raccoon families screeching and other close to the ground creatures running so fast they're blurred. Weasels, maybe. Last is a young deer with a rack of mossy antlers. He enters the clearing in one mighty leap, freezing for a split second as if posing for an amazing nature picture, and then vanishes into a stand of pines on the opposite side of camp. The message couldn't be clearer. Run if you want to live. Run. I kick open the cabin door and I grab crates and cans of jugs of water. I race back to the shed, fear choking my throat, because I can hear the fire now roaring close behind me, the thick wall of smoke, the crackling of burning branches, the whoosh of leaves igniting into flames. It can only mean one thing. Fire is eating the forest. Fire is coming so fast I can't possibly outrun it, not without help, not without the Jeep. Doesn't matter that I don't know how to drive. It's my only chance. Chapter 9, Between the Fire and Me. I toss the crates into the back of the Jeep and I slip behind the wheel, hands shaking, trying to remember what little I know about driving a standard transmission. I know the clutch is important. That's how you shift gears, but which one is the clutch pedal and which one is the brake? Take a guess. I press down on the left pedal. It goes all the way to the floor. Okay, that must be the clutch. I turn the lever on the dash to on. Nothing. Total silence. I jiggle the lever. Still nothing. Forget the Jeep. Run for your life. No. Wait. Starter pedal. Yes. Remember? Dad said really old Jeeps had a starter pedal, something you had to press down with your foot to make the engine turn over. Find it. Boy, find it or die. I look down and I spot a small, knobby rubber pedal. I press on it with my foot. The most amazing thing happens. The engine turns over and catches. Nothing ever sounded so good as that engine purring, like it woke up happy from a deep sleep and is ready to get to work. That running engine gives me hope, but the smoke is getting thicker, filling the shed. My eyes sting. What do I do? What do I do next? How do I make it go? My brain screams, just do something, you idiot. Put this beast in gear and get moving. Yes, but how? There are two stick shifts, one big and one small, one for regular and one for four-wheel drive. The bigger stick must be for regular transmission, right? But how do I get into first gear? And then I see it. A diagram on the dashboard. First gear is left and down. Quick, do it or get burned to a crisp. I grab the stick, pull it left and down. It clicks into place. Okay, now put your right foot on the gas pedal and lift the clutch pedal with your left. Careful, don't stall the engine. My left foot accidentally slips off the clutch pedal and wham! There's an awful grinding noise as the Jeep lurches into gear. Suddenly, we're out of the shed, me and the Jeep, bouncing through the clearing, knocking down bushes and skinny saplings with fire raging behind us. I'm fighting to get control. The steering wheel bucks in my sweaty hands like a thing alive. I manage to grab hard enough so it stops slipping through my fingers. I'm in control, more or less. I'm steering for the path, steering for my life, because the fire behind me is louder than the engine in front of me. Drive, boy, drive. Go, go, go. I know this sounds crazy, but as for me and that old Jeep tear through the clearing, I'm laughing out loud. The vehicle is bucking like a horse, fighting to go wild, and I'm howling in relief, hanging on to that steering wheel like my life depends on it, because guess what? It does. I sneak a look behind just in time to see the lumber camp explode into fire. The sheds are burning, dripping with flames. The birches are going up like skinny white candles spreading from tree to tree. There are hot threads of red and orange glowing behind the smoke. It would look beautiful if it wasn't so awful. When I get to the old logging trail, I have to choose which way to go, right or left. Instinct tells me I need to head into the wind, so I steer to the left. The Jeep finds the ruts and the steering wheel stops fighting me so much, like it knows the way. Maybe it does. No, that's crazy. It's just a machine. Nuts and bolts and steel. It feels alive because the trail is so bumpy and because my heart is beating hard enough for two. I'm super frightened and super excited at the same time. The fire scares me to death, but driving the Jeep is the most fun I've ever had. The farther we get down the trail, the less smoke in the air. I'm feeling more confident. I'd like to run around and check what's happening behind me. Is the fire catching up? But I don't dare take my eyes off the old logging trail. What would Dad say? Keep the wheel in the ruts. Don't stop, because what if you can't get it into gear again? That would be fatal. Got to keep moving. Yes, Dad. Yes. Put as much distance as possible between the fire and me. I'm pedal to the metal in first gear. I could try for second gear and get more speed, but what if it stalls and I'm bouncing so hard I'm not sure I can handle going faster? Every now and then we hit a root or rock that makes the steering wheel shudder and the Jeep groan like it feels pain. I decide not to change anything, just stick with it for now. Try not to worry about what's happening behind me. My mission is to keep it on the path. Dad was always saying, learn as you go, right? So now's my chance. Stay focused, pay attention, and let the vehicle eat up the yards. Not sure how long it lasts, that first part of the journey, half an hour, maybe 7 miles down the trail. I'm drenched in sweat. But we're doing great, the Jeep and me, and we might have gotten clear of the fire for good if it wasn't for what happened next. Chapter 10, The Girl with the Raccoon Eyes. The first screech sounds like a wounded bird. It calls again, closer and louder. Not a bird, it's human. Definitely human. I put the Jeep in neutral, roll to a stop, listening. Hey, comes a faint voice. Hey, you, wait, please wait. A girl. At first, I can't see her, and then she pushes her way through the tree branches, maybe 50 yards from the logging road, limping along as fast as she can, leaning on a stick with a small backpack slung over her shoulder, face covered with soot except for her eyes. Makes her look like a reverse raccoon. I leave the engine running and I get out to help. She stumbles through the ferns, hurrying like she's afraid. I'll leave her behind. I give her a shoulder to lean on, not sure it helps because she's a head taller than me. Boy, does she stink of smoke and sweat. It almost got me, she says, panting. The fire last night. I ran. No idea where I was going, just trying to get away. You're okay. I guide her to the Jeep. She collapses into the passenger seat and starts to cry. Great heaving sobs of relief. She wipes tears and soot from her face with the back of her hand. Sorry, I don't cry. Well, hardly ever. But I thought I was dead, and then I heard that beautiful motor sound. I was so afraid it would pass by before I could find it. Ran as hard as I could until I tripped and I hurt my ankle. But you kept on running, I guess. She focuses on me as if seeing me for the first time. Excuse me, but are you old enough to drive? I'm doing okay. You're what, 12? Almost 13. Do you want to ride or not? That makes her laugh. Ha, sorry for asking. It's not like there are any cops around to give you a ticket. Fire's coming this way. We best keep moving. I get behind the wheel, put the Jeep in gear. There's a jug of water in the back seat. Help yourself. Up until 3 minutes ago, I was on my own, the only human in the woods, or that's how it felt. I kind of liked it that way. Then the girl appears out of nowhere. Delphi Pappas. She's from Camp Calusa down the lake from Camp Wabananski. 2 years older than me, broad-shouldered and way taller, with long dark ponytail. She's big, strong, and solid, the kind of girl you'd want on your sports team. As we bounce along the ruts, keeping a steady pace, she raises her voice above the noise of the engine and thanks me for stopping. No problem. Is this your Jeep? She asked. What are you doing out here? I tell her about going back for my phone and missing the bus and stumbling into the lumber camp. That's where I found the Jeep. It saved my life, and I guess I saved it too because the lumber camp went up in flames. What about you? She looks away. I was out in the woods the night before the fire. Yeah? I was texting someone when it was really late and I got totally lost in the dark. Had to drink water from this disgusting mucky pool. Next morning, yesterday, right? I could see the camp through the trees when the sun came up. Almost made it. The fire. It came wicked fast. She nods quickly. All I could do was run. Never been so scared in my life. Calusa. That's a survival camp, right? Fitness mostly. Sports. For me, it was track and volleyball, which I guess probably saved my life, the running part. So where are we headed? I don't know exactly. I'm hoping this trail connects with the main road and we get there before the fire does. Okay, says the girl with the raccoon eyes. Hope is good. Chapter 11, Dead as a Doornail. We rumble along for at least an hour, making good progress. The smoke has thinned from the sky and the smell is fainter by the minute. I'm getting more relaxed and confident behind the wheel. I've got this thing beat. I can do it. Hands at 10 and 2, like Dad showed me, and keep your eyes on the road. In this case, the rutted trail. On the lookout for any fallen trees or rocks, because if we break an axle, the Jeep's all done. When the trail straightens out, I ask Delphi where she's from. Westbrook. We have a Greek restaurant. It's on 302 Delphi's. And no, the restaurant isn't named after me. It's named after my grandmother, Adelphia, who started it. Cool. It is mostly. The whole family works there. My mom and dad, aunts, uncles, cousins. Sounds like a big place. She nods. Started small, but now we can seat 150 on Saturday nights. And that's the nights I have to scrub pots. Ugh. I wonder what it must be like being a part of a big family. She makes it sound like fun, even if it does mean scrubbing pots. We settled in, putting miles between us and the fire. My passenger gets so relaxed she almost falls asleep, even though the ride is bumpy. With her head lolling and her eyelids drooping and her face cleaned of soot, Delphi looks younger, a little girl in a big, tall body. Must be exhausted from her night in the woods. She hasn't really explained what she was doing out there, but she did say she ran her battery down texting someone. I wonder about that. Why go out in the woods to text? Didn't her camp counselor tell her it's dangerous to be wandering the forest of Maine at night? Didn't they warn her about bears and coyotes and bobcats, or how easy it is to get lost? After a while, she startles herself awake and goes, Sorry, sorry. Where are we, Sam? See that little glove compartment? There's a map that might help. Are you good with maps? She looks uncertain. I got a GPS app like that. Never mind. I'll check it out when we stop. Right now, all I know is we're headed mostly west. How do you know that? I point to the compass on the dash. Oh, I was wondering, maybe we can charge my phone from the car battery? I don't think so. It's not like you can just plug it in. She exhales and leans back into her seat, disappointed. I really, really need my phone. I need to let my parents know what happened. They'll be worried sick. How far before we get to a real road? Don't know. Could be around the next corner, could be miles. At exactly that moment, the engine sputters and dies. The Jeep slows to a stop, dead as a doornail. Chapter 12, Not on This Map. After about 100 years of totally insane panic, okay, maybe 10 seconds, I realize what's wrong and start chuckling. Delphi has this look like, what have I gotten myself into? Until I explain that we run out of gas. And why is that funny? Because I can fix it. I go around to the back where the two 5-gallon fuel cans are strapped to the bumper. Delphi offers to help. My ankle hurts, but there's nothing wrong with my arms. She grins and makes a muscle. Turns out she's way stronger than me. Good thing, because the cans are really heavy, and the last thing I want to do is waste gas by spilling it. I unscrew the cap, and we both hold the can as we slowly tip it up, carefully pouring every drop of gas into the empty tank. And then we do it all again with the second can. 10 gallons. That should be good for 100 miles at least. Delphi's face falls. You think it's that far? A real road? Hope not. Let's look at the map, see if we can figure it out. I take the old map out of the glove box and I unfold it on the hood. The air is hot and heavy, and although there's no strong smell of smoke, the air is still bad, so breathing is a chore. Sweat is running into my eyes, and I have to blink it away before I can see the map clearly. I'm disappointed it isn't like the trail maps Dad taught me how to read at Baxter State Park. At first, it just looks like a bunch of squiggly green lines. The faded printing identifies it as a topographical survey, but I'm not sure what that means exactly. Delphi leans over the map, squinting her thoughtful brown eyes, and announces that the lines are marked for elevation. Elevation? I asked. How high above sea level? See? As soon as she says that, the map suddenly makes sense, like one of those trick puzzles that snap into place once you know the secret. The squiggly green lines trace the shape of the land and lakes and mountains. The lines are closer together where the mountains are steep and far apart where the ground is flat or where there's water. I lean over the map. Wabananski Lake. My camp and your camp are on the same lake, right? If we can find it on the map, at least we'll know where we started. The printing is tiny and faded, but we eventually identify the long, skinny shape of the lake. There are no markings for the summer camps located along the shoreline, but the map is old, and maybe the camps are more recent, or maybe they just didn't bother marking them down. Delphi must have really sharp eyes because she's the one who spots the faint pencil lines. Could this be the logging road? She asked. The pencil markings run east and west along the map, following the lower elevation, the flatland. At one end, there's a smudged X, and the other end continues to the far edge of the map. Yeah, I think you're right. It makes sense if the X is the lumber camp. So We'd be somewhere in here. I placed my finger on the smudged pencil line. So where does this connect to a main road? It doesn't. Not on this map. Delphi sighs, her round face concerned. We're really in trouble, aren't we? Yes. But if we stay ahead of the fire, we'll be okay. That's the main thing. Keep ahead of the fire. It's summer, so we're not going to die of exposure as long as we have water, and we have food for at least 5 or 6 days if we don't pig out. Delphi's eyes get even bigger. For real? You have food? I show her the crates in the back seat. Beans, beef stew, franks and beans, spam, tuna fish. She picks up a can, makes a quirky face. Are you serious? Bread in a can? I nod. Brown bread. Almost like cake. It's really good, especially with butter. Not that we have any butter. Ah, she looks over the collection. Lots of beans. Beans are nutritious. Besides, this is Maine. We practically invented baked beans. For some reason, that makes Delphi laugh. Then she gets serious. Could you, open a can? I'm starving. You choose. I recommend the beef stew. We don't have spoons, so she sips beef stew right from the can as we drive along the logging trail, keeping a safe distance between us and the fire, at least for now. Chapter 13. Okay for a boy. Turns out my passenger is pretty funny when she wants to be. We're bumping along, going about 10 miles an hour, and suddenly she shades her eyes with her hand and goes, Slow down. I see the golden arches. Big Mac's dead ahead. For one tiny millisecond, I almost fall for it. Gotcha, she grins at me. No way. Way, you totally believe me. You're good, I admit. Good enough for ice cream. I've been saving the last pint of chocolate chip in the cooler in the back. Her eyes dart to the back, and I burst out laughing. She slumps in her seat. Great. I got away from fatness camp, but I can't get away from imaginary food. Fatness camp? They call it fitness because it sounds better, but at least half the girls are there to lose weight. Can I ask you a question? Why were you out in the woods at night? No comment. And she wouldn't say any more on the subject. But here's the thing. After making each other laugh, we're no longer strangers. We're not a team yet, me and Delphi Pappas, but we're getting there. Late in the day, with light fading through the green leaves and the smell of smoke ever more distant, we come upon a faded hand-painted sign nailed to a tree. Piney Pond Cottage, walk from here. Delphi says, if somebody's home, maybe they've got a phone. I really, really want to talk to my mom. It's a footpath, I pointed out, too narrow for a vehicle. But Delphi leverages herself out of the seat, grabs the stick she's using for a crutch, and hobbles past the sign. I'm nervous about leaving the Jeep alone. It saved my life, and my gut tells me to stick with it until we're clear of the forest, clear of the fire. I can't outrun a fire, and for sure Delphi can't. But I need a phone as much as she does to make sure my mom is okay and to get us rescued. So I carefully park the Jeep in a cleared space near the sign. This must be where the owners leave their car or truck, and follow her down the footpath. The path looks like it hasn't been used lately. The undergrowth is so thick with ferns that it's like a wall of soft green waves on either side. Delphi is limping along so fast I can hardly keep up, and I worry she'll trip and make her ankle worse. Wait up, take it easy. But she's real determined, crashing through the ferns and slashing her stick to clear the path, and then suddenly we're in the clear. A meadow slopes down to a white cottage on the edge of a small pond. There's a small rickety dock, but no boat, and the shutters on the cottage windows are closed. Nobody home is my guess, but Delphi is determined to find out for sure. A screened-in porch wraps around two sides of the cottage, and she's up the steps and into the porch before I get there, darting around the old wicker furniture and peering through the glass on the front door into the dim interior. She rattles the doorknob, locked. I don't think there's anyone here, I say. There'd be a car or truck in the spot, right? Sounding irritated, she turns to me. Okay, Sherlock, I get that. Nobody's home, duh. But what if there's a phone charger in there or a landline? I take a step back. She's taller than me and holding a big stick. She notices my reaction and her face falls. Oh, hey. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just like hot and miserable and obsessed about calling my parents, okay? Delphi, I'm pretty sure there aren't any chargers in there. Well, how do you know that? Well, look around. There are no power lines attached to the house. No telephone lines. No lines of any kind. She hobbles down the steps, looks up at the roof line of the porch and cottage, her shoulders slump. This is so messed up. There are a lot of places like this in the backwoods, hunting cabins and getaway cottages that are too remote for power. Well, that's stupid. I shrug. Not so sure about that. It's sort of like camping out, except with a real roof over your head. Summer only, I'm guessing, unless they come by snowmobile. That lumber camp, it didn't have power either. I hate this, Delphi says, frustrated. Hate it, hate it, hate it. No, no, this is good, I insist. This is a great find, even without a phone. We're far enough ahead of the fire that we can hardly smell it. And besides, we don't dare drive a logging trail after dark. Too easy to go off the road. So we need a place to stay for the night. The porch is good. The bugs won't be able to chomp on us. Plus, we have chairs and couches and cushions. See? It's way better than sleeping in the Jeep. I'll go back for some food and we'll have a nice supper right here on the porch. How about that? Delphi wipes her glistening face with the back of her hand. You're okay for a boy. You know that? Chapter 14, Land of a Thousand Dances. On my walk back to the Jeep, I remember something Dad once said with the snowmobile. To make sure it didn't get stolen, he pulled the main spark plug wire and took it with him. No spark, no steal, he said with a smile. Doubtful there's anyone around to steal the Jeep, but I can't risk it, not with our lives at stake. I lift the hood and follow his example. Thanks, Dad. When I return with canned goods for supper, Delphi is perched on an old porch rocker, looking very pleased with herself. The door to the cottage is open. You broke in? Nope. She holds up a key. Found it, under the mat. The sun is already low in the sky, and and the shuttered windows make the inside of the cottage dim. What's in there? Delphi shrugs. I was waiting for you. I ease down into a chair. We're probably breaking the law just being here, trespassing, right? Said the boy who stole the Jeep? Borrowed, I responded quickly. Whatever. This is what they call a special circumstance. We're two kids lost in the woods running from a forest fire, okay? I don't think they'll send us to prison for seeing if there's anything inside that can help us survive. That makes sense, but it still feels wrong. The pond, the empty dock, the comfortable old porch furniture, it all looks private, like we're intruding on a family. But Delphi is right. What if there's a phone in there? Or food and water, like at the logging camp? Okay, let's take a look. It takes a moment for my eyes to adjust to the deep shadows inside the cabin. Our footsteps echo in a way that makes me think the place is hollow somehow. Then I realize not hollow, but empty. It even smells empty. There is nothing inside but hot, stale air and an old broom leaning against a bare wall. No furniture, no pictures on the walls, no wood for the stone fireplace. The cupboard doors are open and the shelves are bare. No food, water, or supplies. No candles, lanterns, or flashlights. Nothing. Whoever they were, the owners, they're gone. Delphi sighs. Gone for a long time. Years probably. Look at the dust. Sorry, it's not your fault. She's being polite, but sounds heartbroken. Delphi pulls open a kitchen drawer, looking for silverware. At first glance, it seems to be as empty as the cupboards until she reaches to the very back, and then her eyes get bigger. I've got something, she exclaims. A phone! It's a phone! But her excitement doesn't last long. The object from the drawer is about the same size and shape as an old flip phone, but it's not. It's a small, self-powered emergency radio with a crank on the side. Turn the crank fast for a couple of minutes and the radio will play for a little while. I take it from her and I check it out. This is really cool, Delphi. My dad had one of these. He used it for the weather reports when we were hiking, so we'd get warnings of thunderstorms or flash floods, like that. With the hand crank, you don't have to worry about batteries. Maybe we can find out where the fire is headed. Delphi isn't listening. She hobbles out into the porch, keeping her back turned. I know better than to say anything. Plenty of times I've wanted to cry myself from frustration and fear and not knowing what happens next. Out here in the blazing heat, running from a fire, all you have to do is take a wrong turn, make a bad decision, and you turn into a crispy critter. No second chances once the flames catch up. I can't imagine a worse way to die, but I can't help thinking about it, even though I'm pretty sure we're way ahead of the fire. Anyhow, if Delphi wants to shed a few tears, I'm not going to say a word about it. No way. I go to the opposite end of the porch and fiddle with the radio, turning the hand crank as far as I can. After 30 cranks, I switch it on. Static. I rotate the dial. More static. Behind me, Delphi goes, try pulling out the antenna. Extending the antenna seems to help, but mostly the static is just louder. I give the thing a few more cranks, then fiddle with the dial again, and this time a faint but familiar voice weaves through the static. I turn slowly. aiming the antenna until the voice sharpens. The voice that did our wake-up calls, followed by golden oldies. Fat Freddie Bell. Usually he's joking around, but not this time. This time he's dead serious. Reporting that more than 15,000 acres of dry timberland have been engulfed by wind-driven flames in the last 48 hours. In some areas, a wall of flame has spread a mile in less than an hour, leaving nothing but smoldering ash behind. Firefighters are working hard, but they haven't been able to stop it. What started this fire is yet undetermined. Could be a careless camper or what they call dry lightning. But whatever started it, officials fear this may be worse than the Great Fire of 1947 that burned from the mountains to the sea, destroying town after town. Unless we get some rain, boy, we do need rain. So we're praying for rain. We're dancing for rain. That's right. Your host, Fat Freddie Bell, is dancing right now in RPZ radio, making a fool of himself. Come on, come on. Let's all get up and dance. Old and young, everybody, dance until it rains. The voice blends into music, wild, rocking music about the land of 1,000 dances, but it quickly fades to static. Delphi tucks the radio into her backpack and then looks at me with worried eyes. We're in bad trouble. Chapter 15, The Fart Heard Around the World. We're sitting on the screen porch in the dark, both of us groaning because our stomachs are so full. Cold beans and franks may not sound appetizing, but it is if you're starving. And the beans weren't really cold, not in this heat. Must be 90 degrees with the sun down. To top it off, we each ate a can of brown bread, and even without butter, it was delicious. Delphi, contented, says, "This is the fullest I've been since before Camp Fatness and all those so-called healthy meals. It feels good not to be hungry. I don't know about the other campers, but you're not, fat or anything. You're tall for a girl, that's all. Tall and big and strong, but definitely not overweight. Huh, tall and big and strong. Just what every girl wants to hear. I'm serious. Well, let's talk about something else." She leans back in her porch rocker and massages her sore ankle. It's so dark, the world outside the porch might as well be a pool of black ink. No stars, and the smell of smoke remains faint and distant, which means we don't have to worry about the fire, not right this minute anyhow. Delphi clears her throat. Know what I want more than anything? A hot shower to wash my hair. I feel like a dirt ball and everything feels gross, like I've been dipped in grease and then rolled around in the dirt. Ugh. No plumbing in this cabin, but tomorrow morning, first light, we can wash up in the pond. That would be cool. So what do you want more than anything? No need to think about it. Call my mom. Her expression softens. What would you tell her? That I'm okay and not to worry? Delphi nods. I wish it was true that there's nothing to worry about. How far away are we from the fire? Miles, I hope. That DJ on the radio said it was spreading like a mile an hour. So every time we stop moving, it might be catching up, right? I shake my head because I know what she's about to ask. No way. We can't drive at night. Not on that trail. We'd wreck the Jeep and then we'd be toast. No, totally, I get it. Unless you think you can drive at night on a trail we don't know. Hey, Sam, I can't drive at all, okay? No clue. I'm not like being critical or anything. I'm just worried. She sighs. So if the fire does catch up, can we just jump in the pond? I think about it. Maybe, if that's our only option. It's risky. Our camp counselor told us it's better to find another way out if possible. Even in a pond, if you're not far enough away from the burning shoreline, the smoke from a big fire might make it too hard to breathe. It depends on if we want to burn to death or die of smoke inhalation. Great choice. Don't worry, Delphi. The fire can't catch us. Not as long as we have the Jeep. Thanks, Sam. What do we do next? Before the lumber camp burned, I had a plan. I was going to chop down some birch saplings and make a big help sign that could be seen from the air. She perks up. Well, that's a great idea. Except I haven't heard any search planes overhead. Have you? Or helicopters? No, but somebody has to be looking for us, right? Unless they think we're dead. There are a bunch of camps on Lake Wabananski. Our camp and your camp and my camp and the YMCA on the far side of the lake, plus lots of summer cottages. What I mean is the fire came up so fast. We can't be the only ones missing. True. I'll help you make the sign if you think it might work. Awesome. We sit there in the dark for a while, not saying anything. At first, it feels awkward, and then I kind of relax into silence. People don't have to talk every second, they can just be quiet together. Not perfectly quiet, though, because my stomach is rumbling, which is embarrassing. Not that Delphi says anything about it. To cover up the rumble, I ask if she has any brothers or sisters. She nods. Angie and Callista, 5 years younger. They are twins. Not identical, but they might as well be. They had their own language until they were like 6 years old. They still call me the BFG, or Gigi for short. BFG? Big Friendly Giant, she laughs. They love that book so much, I guess I should be flattered. What about you? It's just mom. It's just me and mom. I leave it at that. Did your parents make you go to camp? Is that why you want to run away? She jerks back, offended. Who says I was running away? I got lost in the woods, that's all. Okay, sorry. Not something she wants to discuss, obviously. It's my dad's idea to try fitness camp, she continues, especially the volleyball program. He wants me to use my tall. Turns out I like track better, but volleyball's okay. Use your tall? Like, embrace it. Dad is 6'5". He thinks it's cool having a tall daughter. Says he wants me to have an altitude instead of attitude. Sounds like a cool guy. My dad wouldn't know cool if it bit him on the butt. That makes me chuckle. You're pretty funny, you know that? So now I'm big and tall and funny? That's just great. I sighed. I'm never going to beat you, am I? Never, ever, ever. Except that little man. Hey, except that average height boy for his age. Even in the dark, I can tell she's grinning. She likes it, us bouncing stuff off each other, making wisecracks. I never had a big sister, but maybe this is what it's like. I've got a plan, she says. You know what my plan is? My plan is tomorrow we get rescued. Great. That's my plan too. And then it happens, without warning or any way to stop it. I let one rip. I mean, really rip. It sounds like an out of control whoopee cushion venting loud and long, like a not so distant artillery barrage, like, oh, never mind. You know what it sounds like. When at long last it's over, I gasp and say the first thing that comes to mind. Beans. That does it. Delphi goes bonkers, and then I'm laughing too, and it's like contagious or something. We can't stop. We keep laughing and giggling until we're out of breath, and then Delphi snickers and shouts, Beans! And we start laughing all over again, laughing until my stomach hurts so bad I have to jam my fist in my mouth to stop the giggles. Beans, beans, the musical fruit, she chants. Stop, I beg her. Don't. The more you eat, the more you toot. I never knew that you can laugh yourself to sleep. But you can, under the right circumstances. Thank you for listening.